Okay, this is What If episode 3. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so I'll have a bit of trouble talking, and I won't be able to talk too long. I've got a bit of a headache too, so but I'll still do the video. This episode I'll be talk. This was a good question by MRTED. Can't remember the numbers, something like that. But he asked, "What if Misawa had never left Old Japan Pro Wrestling?" Now, some of the people watching this won't understand the question. Now, in the 1960s and 70s, you had one professional wrestling association in Japan, and that was JWA, the Japanese Wrestling Alliance or Association or something like that. I can't remember the actual thing, but you had Rizuto at the who was the main event or the top guy, and he also ran it and stuff. Anyway, he died in 1972, and then you had the two other top guys, or his two top proteges, or the people who were going to take over from him, Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki. Now, you've probably heard of both of them. Now, Giant Baba went on to form All Japan Pro Wrestling, and Antonio Inoki started New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they competed for the next... Well, they're still competing, but, you know, they competed as only two big Japanese promotions for the next, 28 years. Anyway, in 1999, Giant Baba died of cancer or something. I can't exactly remember. And Misawa took over as, or Misawa and Giant Baba's wife, I think it's Shohei Baba or something like that, they both took over. Anyway, Misawa didn't like the direction that Giant Baba's wife was going to take All Japan Pro Wrestling, which I believe was more of an entertainment type of thing. So he left and took pretty much everyone with him except for Stan Hansen and Toshiaki Kawada, who were two top guys there. But the reason why everyone left with Misawa was because he was the top guy, and everyone thought that if he left, they'd be better off going wherever he went. And same thing with because Ketakabashi went because he had a loyalty to Misawa. And he was also a higher up in All Japan Pro Wrestling near the end of it. He was one of the directors, I believe. So, and he didn't like where the changes were heading, so he went with Misawa. And pretty much everyone just went with them because, as I said, they felt it would be better if they went with him, because Misawa left to start his own promotion. Now, if he'd just left by himself, it wouldn't have been that much of a big deal. If he left and everyone else stayed, it would have just been Misawa going. I mean, it would have been their top guy leaving, but he would have gone to New Japan Pro Wrestling, most likely, and just competed there. But, or he would have started his own promotion, and it would be a small scale promotion, not as big as what Noah is today, which we all know he started. Anyway, but the thing is, with Misawa leaving, everyone else is going to leave with him, because he just had that much control of the backs, of all the wrestlers. He just had that much influence. I'm not going to say politics, because he obviously politicked, but he didn't politic his way to the top, because he got to the top by being a good wrestler. Then when he got to the top, they gave him more of a position of power, and because he had more of a position of power, he used his influence to take everyone with him when he left. Now, had there never been that split, the bottom of Japanese pro wrestling never would have been taken out, because you would still have old Japan, and what would have happened with it, with Misawa not leaving, because I'll explain. With Misawa leaving and taking everyone with him to Noah, you lost a lot of the school. Old Japan Pro Wrestling lost their instructors and people who were teaching in the Old Japan Pro Wrestling dojo, and because of that they lost a lot of the younger guys, and they lost them to Noah, and Noah didn't have their own school. So you had Old Japan, who had two guys left, and one of them retired just as 2000, when the split happened, and had a school, and a lot of the students left in the school, and they went to Noah, but Noah didn't have a school anyway. So, and then New Japan had a lot of its top guys go, and all of a sudden the bottom was just taken out of the pro wrestling in Japan. And because that happened, it was like when WCW crumbled. The only way to start a new promotion and get your interest in it is by using older established stars, and therefore you didn't have younger guys coming in. and in Japan. In Japan, you had all of a sudden everyone was just it was the guys who should have been phased out in the early 2000s are still main eventing today. Like you've got Kenji Muto or the Great Muta, Kawada or Toshiaki Kawada, Mitsuharu Misawa, Shinya Hashimoto would still be main eventing today if he was still alive. John Akiyama, or maybe he would still be main eventing anyway. But you have all these the old guys, who are still competing because the industry needs their big names and needs them to draw, because without them, they think that if they were trying to get interest back into it, so they had to keep their fan base, or as much as their fan base as they could, by keeping the top guys or the older guys at the top, like because they were the biggest names and the biggest draws. They didn't want to start pushing younger guys when the company was so in such a fragile state, because if they'd done that, they weren't sure if the younger guys were ready to carry the company. So in Japan, you really lost a lot of the younger talent. Now it's only recovering now when you're having Morishima coming up in Noah, and who's in his late 20s, maybe even 30 by now. Kenta, Marufuji, they should have been top guys 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago. But that didn't, or not top guys, but they should have been getting into the main event picture that longer, but they couldn't, because no one just had to try to survive by using the established guys, because they were afraid that if they let someone else come in, or let the younger guys, they wouldn't be able to handle the main event picture, and they wouldn't be able to draw. So if Misawa didn't leave, he probably would have retired by now, or you'd have a lot of the guys who are main eventing in Japan wouldn't be main eventing in Japan. Kenji Muto would still be in Old Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling. Shinya Hashimoto would most likely never have started 01 Max, because he took the opportunity of the Noah split wrestling, which just not going on a decline, to start a new promotion, and then he died in 2005. Tenryu wouldn't have come back to Old Japan Pro Wrestling, and it wouldn't still be, Misawa still wouldn't be main eventing at 45. You would have young guys like Morishima and Kenta and so on main eventing in Old Japan Pro Wrestling, and it would still be like Old Japan Pro Wrestling in the 90s, not the entertainment spectacle that it is now. Because right now it's very entertainment based rather than wrestling based, like it was in the 90s, 80s, and 70s. And it would be now New Japan. They should have suffered the least, because they were already a big company, but even when Old Japan split, they suffered from it, and they suffered so much from it that they still had to continue pushing the older guys like Hiroshi Tenzan, and even they lost them, so they sort of had to bring in the younger guys, or bring up younger guys, but even then, they didn't really do it. They decided to just start, well, they didn't decide, but they just co-promoted with Old Japan Pro Wrestling, and when the co-promotion there was over, that's when they lost some of their big guys like Kenji Muto, and then they were still pushing. I mean, they're still, now New Japan is probably the least bad, or they're not putting older guys into the main event picture as bad as Old Japan or Noah, because they sort of had to bring in younger guys, or bring in new talent, just because of the lack of their own, because they lost Hashimoto, they lost Muto, Tenzan, and one of the top guys they were pushing, who was Satoshi Kojima. And they still have old guys like Masahiro Chono around, but they are pushing young guys, and Noah is doing it more and more now, and Old Japan, they're not really doing as much as they should. But had that never happened, it would be completely different, and it wouldn't have changed much from the 90s, except for just the wrestlers. It would still be wrestling based, and you would just have new faces in there like Morishima and other guys, who are still mid-carding now. Anyway, that's the end of my video, and not tomorrow but the day after, I'll be doing What If Wrestling Was Never Declared Entertainment by Vince, and What If ECW Never Went Under. Thanks, bye.